And we're live. Okay, I see we have some audience. Hello to everyone. I hope you're enjoying a great morning. Sunny, warm. We'll take probably 2 more minutes to wait for other people to join. There is a chat functionality on this platform, so you guys from the audience, if you want to say hi, tell us if you see us okay, if the sound is good. Hi Istvan, hello from Budapest, hello from Chisinau, and many other cities. Okay, I think we should get starting. Hi again. Welcome to this webinar. First of all, I'd like to thank the Association of Serbian Banks and Sanja Tomic for hosting it and for giving us the chance to speak to the Serbian banks in the audience, maybe other people as well. My name is Vasilij Valkov. I'll be moderating the session. I'm an open banking expert with Banfico, but I've been in the open banking world for 8 years now, working with banks, with fintechs, technology companies, and I've seen tens of various use cases being implemented in almost all countries in the European Union and beyond. And I'm joined by 5 speakers. I'll kindly ask them to introduce themselves. Guido?
Yeah, shall I go first? So my name is Guido van der Laan. I'm currently product lead for a team that is specialized in connecting the banker workflow, which is ING, to parties outside of ING, particularly via APIs. So the PSD2 offering is under one of the propositions that we support, but also commercial APIs. And many of the things that I will be talking about today is from my experience I had with my previous bank, which is ABN AMRO, where I was the product lead for implementing the PSD2 APIs.
Thank you.
Martina?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here. My name is Martina. I'm working as a product manager for open banking and verification service at Experian in Italy. I don't know if you all know Experian, but it's a global data and technology company. We are operating in over 32 countries with a team with more than 22,000 people. So our mission is to basically power opportunity for people and business around the world. So we are very famous for data analytics and software to help basically defining different things like lending practice, fraud, deliver marketing solution. And today I'll be here to share some insight on the most common use case of the open banking.
Thank you. Tim?
Yes, hi, good morning. I'm Tim. I'm responsible for open banking, the central solution in Erste. So we have a central developer portal, which I'm responsible for, and we support all the countries that are participating in this to publish their PSD2 and premium APIs.
Thanks. Andre?
Hi everyone, my name is Ondřej Buen and I'm Chief Strategic Initiative Officer in Shoptet. Shoptet is an e-commerce platform to start and grow the business. To start and grow your business. We are operating in CEE, mainly in Czech Republic and Slovakia, with over 40,000 merchants and their web shops. I started working here about 4 years ago on our embedded financial and payment products, which includes also open banking related products based on AIS and PIS. I previously worked for several years in the acquiring bank as well, so I'm currently in payments for over 10 years.
Thank you. And
Okay, I'm Paulo. I'm the CEO at Banfico. We are a global technical service provider operating several open banking related products that we then enable to banks, TPPs, and regulators pretty much all over the world. So glad to be here.
Thank you. And of course, the reason why we're all here is to talk about PSD2 and the upcoming deadline for Serbian banks, which is currently 1st of January 2026. And we wanted to make this an insightful discussion, not just a product or company presentation. And before we kick it off, we prepared a few quite interesting topics for you. Just to better understand who is in the audience, we have a few questions for you. So I'll share my screen. And for this purpose, we're using Slido. If you haven't used it before, you can scan the barcode, or you can join slido.com and enter the number you see on the screen. And please let us know what type of company do you represent. Is it a bank? Is it a fintech? Is it something else? Okay, somebody already managed to start typing. We have banks, Association of Serbian Banks, nice, hello. More banks. Okay, so I think the majority of the people are banks. That's good to know. We see two more participants typing. And then we move to the next question. All right. Next one is, if you can tell us what's your role within the bank that you represent. Are you on the IT side, or maybe in payments or digital channels or compliance? Okay, we have a compliance officer, operations, secretary general, chief information security office, payments, more information security, developers, IT application support. All right, that's a good audience. And the last one before we proceed to the discussions, what's the most important topic you want to hear about on today's webinar? Or if it's a question that is really burning. We will, of course, have a Q&A session at the end, but if we'll be able to cover them during the discussion, we'll of course try. Challenges and solutions during introduction. EU payments regulations update. In general, the practice way you did implement open banking, I think we have the right people around the table to cover this. Implementation experience. Okay, 2 more people are typing. We'll wait for them. Practice, usage, consent practice, challenges of implementing PSD2 and practices in general. Okay, so I think most of it is included in our agenda. So thanks for participating in our poll. Okay, so let's kick it off. First topic we have is to discuss about the biggest challenges in providing and consuming PSD2 APIs. And why we start with this one? Because as you've noticed from the introduction of our speakers, we have representatives of banks that had a mandate to implement PSD2 APIs back in 2019 in the European Union. And we have representatives of third-party providers. These are the companies that have been consuming PSD2 APIs in at least a few countries, so Czech Republic, Italy, Spain, and a few others. Tim, would you like to go first and tell us, from your perspective, what was the biggest challenge, or what are the biggest challenges when it comes to the provision of APIs as a bank?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can. So from the bank's perspective, like back in 2018, leading up to 2019, the implementation, from business perspective, it was rather seen as a mandatory requirement, something to be compliant, but more seen as a threat than an opportunity for the bank. It looked like we had to expose customer data, which brings a lot of risk on architectural level, operational risks, without clear benefit for the bank. There was no clear business case, so that lead to banks implementing the bare minimum. So providing the APIs and then like seeing it as a project, and when it's finished, the APIs are there, the developer portal is there, banks stopped with providing anything additional. This was the same for us, same on the technical challenges that we had. Well, what the problem was, or the main issue, it was the requirements were not 100% clear up front. And then it goes to the countries. We are active in multiple countries. Every local country has its regulator who has a slight different interpretation of the requirements, which led to fragmentation. So at the very beginning, we decided to have one solution group-wide, so one developer portal to at least make it as easy as possible for TPPs to onboard and consume, but as well to take a lot of the responsibilities in terms of regulatory reporting, having a sandbox, these things to keep it centrally so that the local countries are only responsible for providing the PSD2 APIs. That was for us the easiest way. So they just import them on the portal, they become available, and everything around it in terms of security and stuff like this was done once and not 7 times over. I think this, from the very beginning, these were the biggest challenges. And then when we integrated with other banks, the main challenge there was that, well, as said, a lot was done to be compliant, but the quality of the APIs was far from being good among banks, which by now, after several years of consumption, by being pushed by regulators and TPPs, I can say it's kind of stable now. So we are getting there.
6 years later, yeah, that's good to know. Okay, thanks a lot. Guido, would you like to share your perspective and your experience?
Yes, well, it shouldn't be a surprise that a lot is overlapping. I think in Serbia you have the benefit that at least a lot is clear over the past years. It has become more clear. Indeed, we were offered the RTS, Regulatory Technical Standard, at one point, which were quite regulatory but not so technical. So we were also trying to figure out, while we are doing the projects, how to deal with things. So there was no clear guidelines. So the requirements were a bit guesstimation basically. But we did it to what we thought was really helping TPPs, because we took the opportunity also to consider the opposite as well, so also the benefit of it. Unfortunately, there was not enough time for it, but it then helps also to make things easy, consumable, because you can leverage from the regulatory APIs that you have to build also to make them premium, and also to put a little bit of add-ons on them. So the better you build them, the better you'll have benefit of it in the future. Our biggest challenge, I think, was first of all the organization internally, because you have to get used to the fact that you have to provide a service to companies that are not really a client of you. And so the first question that somebody from a client service department will ask you, what's your account number? But a TPP won't probably have an account with you. So, and therefore, who's then responsible? Who's then taking that upon him? For instance, the developer portal that Tim is also now managing, that's a generic component in a bank and not per se belonging to a business line. And so who's taking that on? So those kind of organizational challenges, who's going to do who's doing the escalations, etc. Those were probably one of the things that we had to tackle from the beginning. And technically, the biggest challenge, I think, is first of all we have several back offices in several countries. Unfortunately it's not one back office that covers all countries. So it's technically different from the others. So also the output that comes out of it is different. So a transactional data from Belgium is unfortunately a bit different than from Italy, for instance. So you want to also like to structure that a little bit for the TPP. And next to that, the mandates from the customer. So the user admin in the channels, normally it's in a channel. So you've got the internet banking, and then one person can do something that the other one can't. How do you copy paste that into to the offerings that you do for PSD2, and that over many different countries and many different functionalities within those channels? So those were technically the biggest challenges, the differences in formatting and the differences in the user administrations.
Okay, I just see some people writing that either the sound is too low or there's no sound. Can those that hear well leave say yes in the chat, just for me to understand if the issue is for everyone or just for some of the participants? Yes, okay, so seems like it's an issue for some of you. As an advice, please check the connections and the way when you joined the sound output that you chose, if you have headphones or for the laptop. Okay, thanks. Guido, you mentioned about premium APIs. Can you give one example of a premium API that you've built in your previous bank or here with ING or that ING has?
Yeah, so I hope that people can hear me indeed. The premium APIs, the most obvious ones, are obviously also doing payments and reporting. So we basically copy-pasted the PIS and the AIS API and added some features to it. For instance, you don't have to do the 180 days re-authentication of yourself. And we can also do batches and all kinds of and batch details information in that transactional APIs. So we built a reporting API for corporate clients to be used. We created a payment API where customers can send in their transactions when they are already authorized at client side. So we just execute to ensure automated processes and speed. And apart from that, we also did some others on FX, currency trading and stuff like that. So those are the ones that I think everybody can think of in the meantime. But those are actually also the ones that are mostly used by customers.
Okay, those are great examples. Maybe if there will be interest, we can have another session that's focused on premium APIs only. Martina, what was experience in consuming open banking APIs? So I know from firsthand that it was difficult, but can you please tell us what was the biggest challenge?
Yeah, sure. So basically, Experian, we started to work in 2019, so really at the beginning. And I would say that basically we face two main issues. So the first one is the account connectivity, as someone mentioned. So basically, when we started, and actually still the same, but every bank and its own interface and its own flow. So this lack of standardization meant that we have to invest a lot in order to guiding the user to the right process. In particular, when there is the redirect to the bank website to the for the authentication. So we learned that preparing the user properly before this step is quite critical. So basically, we introduce also small things like pop-ups, messages in order to guide them what they have to do, like be ready to have your credential or explaining what they have to do according to the different authentication method of the banks. And also in the last year, also implement the possibility, for example, to aggregate more than one bank account in the same journey in order to make it easier and smoother the process for the user. So as I said, the first challenge was this one, and the other one is building the user confidence. Because obviously, when you ask the user to share their credential for his bank account, is usually tricky. I guess in all the countries, in Italy for sure. So it's really essential to communicate clearly and transparency what is happening, why it's safe, what they have to do, and in particular the benefits. So an incentive like you're going to receive a faster response or a better valuation. You will have some benefits on doing the open banking. Obviously, is one of the key that is going to increase the adoption. So usually we work with our clients that usually are banks in order to identify the right message to add before to be redirecting the open banking process. So it's not just only the technology, but also the experience to make the user confident and sure that it's safe and they are going to get something back during the open banking.
Yeah, I see everyone nodding. User experience very important. And Andre, I sense you have some things to tell us about challenges with user experience.
Yeah, well, the implementation as a whole was a real painful process, and I would even call it a nightmare due to the poor API documentation and didn't check out, and everything also Tim mentioned is spot on that he quite beautifully described what was the causes for some of the issues that there have been before and still are. Regarding the user experience, it's a bit better, but it's still not great. Depending on the country, there's a different user experience in each country, and even within the country with each bank, which increases the difficulties. There are multiple SCAs requested from the user with some of the banks, usually Raiffeisen, have like 3 SCAs to go through the payment, which is exhausting. Opening a new tab in the window for a redirect, which is blocked by the browser. So when you are initiating the payment, the user doesn't get back to you. You don't know anything about the payment result. You can pull it in a couple of minutes or in a half an hour, but you will not get it at first. You are not able to communicate to your customer. The same thing is that we dealt with is that you send a request for PIS to the bank, and you receive the information, request accepted, which is good, but you don't have any information about the authorization sometimes. So you don't know if the payment went through or not. You just know, okay, the request went through. So, and it's just a tip of the iceberg. On the other hand, I can completely understand because the banks already had a private APIs before, and suddenly there's a regulation that requires them to provide something that was monetized in some way, just completely free. So there was not a lot of motivation for the banks to create a really good solution that can be built on. And that's also the result we got. that, okay, we will provide you with something that's compliant, but at some point useless, unfortunately.
Yeah, so for those who joined a bit later, Andre is from Shoptet, which is one of the largest e-com platforms in Central Eastern Europe. And he was the one who implemented the payment initiation solutions within the platform a few years ago. Thanks, Andre, for sharing that. Paulo, as a technical service provider, which Banfico is when it comes to open banking implementations, you obviously sit between the both sides of the same coin, right? So the bank that needs to become compliant, and then the TPPs that need to consume those APIs. From your experience, what would be like the biggest challenge?
Yes, I can really relate to what was already said, and it's funny that we see this same feedback all around the world. So, if we talk with banks in Brazil, in Saudi Arabia, in Nigeria, whatever, I think that the first initial conversations with the banks are usually around why do I need to implement this? Why would I open my bank account to external parties? So the initial conversation more of an educational and trying to change a bit the mindset and mobilizing the right teams. Uh, then we move into actual implementation, and there we do have some technical issues around mainly legacy, and that's where our value added comes. So we can provide this compliance as a plug and play, so that the bank doesn't really need to change anything internally. And then after we move into more of this conversation that Guido was mentioning on how can we leverage this connectivity to enable commercial use cases and premium APIs and all these different conversations. And on the TPP side, the conversation comes a bit later. My experience is that it comes a bit later. And it really depends on the bank. So as Andre was saying, we tend to think about Europe as a harmonized list of countries and institutions, but it really changes from country to country. So I'm really a big fan of the TPPs, and I have a lot of respect for all the work you need to do to maintain these connections with all the different banks and manage all these different even cultural aspects of integrating with different banks. And I think going back to the mindset part, this is all changing, and I think that's even part of the regulatory evolution that we see in Europe with open finance, coming soon, and all this PSD2 and the regulatory agenda is sort of pushing for this for the interaction between banks and TPPs to be more streamlined and hopefully easier, which will then result in more services to the consumers.
Right, thanks. So, just so everyone is aware about the next topics, we'll take a few minutes and ask Martina to describe how Experian is using open banking. Following that, Andre will say how Shoptet has been using both AIS and PIS. And then we'll also ask the bank representatives to share some use cases they've seen from TPPs. And then at the end, we'll have a short Q&A session. So please stay tuned. Martina?
Yeah. So I would say that open banking is one of the most powerful aspects of open banking is basically the ability to enhance the traditional decision-making model by adding this additional layer on the transaction side. So this means usually for the bank side going beyond the statistics information that usually we receive from the declaration, the credit bureau. So incorporating real behavior insights that we can get from the open banking, it is one of basically of the most powerful aspect that banks appreciate of open banking, because obviously it's a way to make this credit decision more robust, more predictive, and more personalized. So I would say that during these years and the different experience we have with all the clients, I would say that the main important use case of the usage of the open banking are the first, the digitalization basically of the prospect acquisition. because obviously open banking is a enabler of the digital transformation. Basically, it's a way to obtain information of a prospect that are quite similar to a known customer for the bank side. And this is the same for the consumer of the business side. So basically, we can gain the same level of insight of a new customer. And this is obviously a game changer for the credit evaluation. Obviously, it's also essential, the open banking for the dynamic credit scoring. So obviously, as I said before, instead of evaluating static information with open banking, we have a more 360 view on the habits, on the financial flow of the company, because we can get access to the real-time transactional data. So obviously, it really helps to have a more accurate and inclusive credit assessment, and obviously allow to have a unified view of all the accounts of a user, of a business. So obviously it's helped to make a faster decision and more confident decision for the banks, and also on the customer side to probably have a better evaluation. So basically, other usage of open banking are related to, for example, for the consumer side, for the evaluation of the affordability analysis, because we can really evaluate the true financial capacity of a user. So most of the time, we evaluate only the income side, but obviously with open banking, we can really understand the habits, if they can basically afford, for example, specific loans that customer is asking for. Obviously, this is help the consumer side, but also the bank side to reduce any possible risk of default. And it's the same for the business side, because basically we are able to identify the cash flow of the company. So most of the time we don't have this kind information on the company side. Instead, with the business, with open banking, we really understand. We can do really an accurate credit assessment on that. And it's a way to get faster and easier the credit for the businesses. Also, the clients are using the open banking in terms of fraud prevention, even verification, because it's an additional step to really be sure that, for example, the bank account that the user are providing are really owned by the prospect. So we can obviously do the matching between the name and the IBAN that they provided compared to the input name that the user provided at the beginning of the online journey. So obviously, an additional layer to be sure and to prevent any fraud. And also, least but not last, I would say that last but not least, I switch that. That basically it's a way to enable personalized offer. So it's also a way to be sure that we are able to tailor the product for the customer, maybe doing upselling, or really try to offer the right product to the right customer. So it's a way also for the consumer side to get a better proposal from the bank. So I would say that these are the main use case that we have seen in the last year on the usage of open banking from the bank side. And
Okay, I love open banking because you can say one word and you can look at it from different angles. So you say personalized offers, and it's in the context of what Experian provides as services, and that's obviously related to credits and to loans, but it can be applicable to consumers, it can be applicable to businesses, but also a bank can use open banking and be an active player, what we call the TPP role, and do that for their own customer base, right? For on the banking side, multi-banking side, financial overview, and many other things.
yeah.
Thanks a lot, Martina. Let's switch now to Andre. Andre, please tell us what was Shoptet's story and how you guys use open banking.
Perfect. Yeah, we decided that we will be implementing open banking functionalities. I think in 2020 or 2021. I joined in 2021, and it was already decided, and I was in charge of it. We started with the with the RFP for the providers, the TPPs, and we started with integration, I think, in the second quarter of 2022. We started with AIS, and our view on the functionality was at first that we will provide our merchants, web shops, that have about 30% of all their orders through account-to-account payments, either through general bank transfer, manually entered, QR codes, or through payment methods, to help them with pairing and automation of their processes. So basically, we implemented AIS so we can see their bank account transfers and the history, and we are able to pair the incoming and outgoing payments with their orders. So they are able to ship orders much faster. So when an order is placed, it's immediately paid. The only solution for the merchant was basically go and look into their internet banking, whether they receive a payment, or waiting for another day for a bank statement that could be uploaded. But with the AIS and open banking, we can basically within 20 minutes or sometimes even faster to pair the transaction with the order, and they can immediately ship, communicate with the merchant, automate the processes and everything, which enables them to match the big players that use the enterprise solutions. Also, we use this solution within the pairing to give them the information about the bank account of their customer. So especially with the clothes shops that refund a lot, they immediately have the bank account in their administration. We created a solution for the QR refund, so they can scan or download the QR code with all the amount for the refund, with the credit note ID and everything. So this is basically one of the use cases we have. Currently, I think about 5,000 or 6,000 of our merchants is currently running on it, and we are growing every month, which is amazing. Second solution that we use based on AIS is for the financing. So as we have the order history of our merchants, what was happening, we can check whether there was a real cash flow on their account, and no, okay, those are not fictional orders. Those are real cash flow that the merchant is generating. We are able to provide them with the land and the offer, short-term offer for the financing. We launched this solution, I think, in September 2023, and we already processed about 2 or 3 million euros through it, which is also amazing. And final is the PIS solution. So we created an account-to-account payment method. While most of the payment providers on the market use the open banking API and the PIS as a payment method where they provide the end customer to send money, they use their own bank account. So usually the flow is that the end customer sends the money to the payment provider, and payment provider sends the money next day in the bulk to the merchant. We integrated the solution that the bank account is already the merchant's account. So there's a combination where the payment initiation is performed by the end customer. The money goes directly to the merchant, and through the AIS, we discovered that it was paid in a couple of minutes. So we skip this process. It's better for the merchant's cash flow. We use PIS and AIS is in Czech Republic, Slovakia, AIS also in Hungary, and with a couple of banks in Poland, Germany, and Austria as well, because those are countries that our merchants focuses most. I would say I like AIS a bit more than the PIS, especially from the customer perspective, because with AIS you create a connection, and for 180 days you don't need to worry usually, but with the PIS it's a pain for the end customer, especially for the consumer. With the merchants on the business side, they know they need to go through the AIS flow, and they are happy to do it 5 times if it's not happening at the first time. But with end customer, within the payment, within the checkout, first time is the charm. If it's not going through, they choose a different payment method. So we are focusing to increase the conversion rate on the PIS, as it's not great, especially with more than 50% of checkouts happening on the mobile device. And unfortunately, neither Czech or Slovak bank provides an app-to-app solution. So for the end customer, it means to log in into their internet banking through the browser and not through the bank application, which is just It's just a shame. Yeah, there's a lot of things to do better, a lot of use cases. Feel free to ask in QA or contact me later on, but I don't want to take all the time here on the webinar.
Thanks a lot, Andre. Maybe you can share, if you can, what are the conversion rates, or what's like the top and the worst, and was there any progress since 2022 up until now?
I think there's a slight progress, just a slight. I think that the worst conversion is even around 35-40% with some banks. With other, we get to, for example, 70%. But yeah.
So still a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah, a lot, especially on the mobile device. You can clearly see that it sometimes doesn't even make sense to use the PIS on the mobile device. I know some merchants that even configured their payment gateway this way, that they support PIS only on the browser, on the desktop, and not on the mobile.
Yeah, and in an age when most people tend to use mobile devices only or mostly, it's difficult to understand this decision. So it's a call for Serbian banks out there to look at how your customers will experience open banking through your apps, right? And how they will authenticate and authorize the access to accounts or the payment initiations. All right, now let's switch back to the banks. Guido, Tim, what are the open banking use cases you've seen and you liked most, or maybe something that your bank implemented as a TPP? If you can share 1-2 examples with the audience.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Guido?
Yeah, so I already mentioned it in the beginning that the most obvious ones are indeed account information where you actually give more data than required via PSD2. And also a payment functionality where customers can send in their payments already pre-authorized, meaning you automate the process. And what I like about that is that more or less same as what Andre already said, that you improve a lot in the entire end-to-end flow. So not only time, but also therefore cost. You can deliver a faster service, and it's also more secure because it's computer to computer, so there's no manual intervention anymore. So those cases I really appreciate. I can give you a couple of examples where we also blogged about it on the channel and at ABN AMRO when I used to work there, so I can freely speak about those. So for instance, we had a car dealership with 50 branches over the Netherlands and only one centralized financial department. So anytime somebody paid for the car, the customers in the meantime also have the WhatsApp experience. So they think I'm going to transfer 40,000 euros to my dealership, and 10 minutes later I can pick up my car. That doesn't work, unfortunately, because then the car dealership says, "Who are you? What are you coming? What are you going to do? I just transferred a lot of money. I can collect my car." And then they had to make phone calls to the financial departments, and most of the times in the weekends they were not there. So a lot of hassle, a lot of work, and a lot of unsatisfied customers. So what happened is that they connected to our AIS API, where they automatically, all the car dealerships had a direct connection to their financial departments, and so they could immediately see when somebody paid. So the moment somebody already paid, the car dealership, the salesperson walking around the floor could already see this and this customer just paid, so he can finish up the car, wait for the customer to be there, and automatically, instead of "Who are you? What are you going to do here? Can I help you?" They, "Hey, I was expecting you. Let me show you the car," and a lot of time saved, more happy customers. And also in the financial department, a cost saved because they were not picking up the phone. Could you check if that person already called? So they were extremely happy about it. And another example I can give you, where we connect the dots, is when somebody, more or less in the line with what Andre already explained, connecting collections via an API, which is real time, immediately to an outgoing payment. And you can do that because of the fact that it's pre-authorized. So the computer of our customer or corporate clients can create that payment and immediately shoot it to the bank for us to process. So it doesn't have to, there's no waiting time anymore, which leads to happier customers because they get their money faster. But also internally, the work becomes a lot more interesting as well, because you're not just, creating payments and waiting for somebody to sign it. And if I may, so sorry, Vasily, I just have one interesting topic coming up, which is now under discussion also in the Berlin Group standard, which is where financial auditors, so for instance, Ernst & Young, KPMG, those kind of companies, they have to do verifications on the financial statements that they're providing. They have to do checks. Is there potential fraud? Is there potential things going wrong internally in their processes, etc.? So they do that now manually, and they would like to connect to the AIS or commercial APIs just to get the data in for them to process it automatically. Now there's a lot of cost saved at these auditors, so potentially also for the customers they are auditing. Less errors are being made because they now do sampling. So, for instance, if you're auditing Shell and then you do a sample of 1,000 payments, what is that? Up on the total of 2 million, right? I mean, that doesn't make sense. So a lot of things they fetch a lot more data, so they can catch a lot more errors or things not going right or wrong. And also for the auditors itself, the work becomes a lot more interesting because now they have a lot of dropouts in that area of expertise because they don't like the work they're doing. They're doing manual checkups on payments. So a lot to gain there. And I really appreciate the adding value to the entire chain and therefore making the proposition of the customer better. more or less what Andre also explained. So the web shop, their product becomes better because they can ship out sooner. Instead of waiting for 2 days, they can immediately ship out. So everybody happy.
Yeah, what I love about open banking is that there's so many untapped use cases, like the one you mentioned with auditing companies. First time I spoke to some of them was like 3 years ago, and
Yep.
every year one of them would try, but we'd always get in this issue with the quality of the bank APIs, especially when it comes to connecting corporate accounts. And because there's no real usage, the banks, yes, they have implemented the solution, but the APIs, but they're not also sure how well or if it works at all. And in many cases, we discover that it doesn't work because it was never tested. And this is just one example, but there's many out there. And I also liked a lot what you said about making the customers happy. So, the bank's customer is happy, the end client of the bank's customer is happy. It just, helps along the way. And having happy clients, I think, is one of the objectives of any business, not just for banks.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and that's always what comes to mind. So maybe in the beginning, maybe also what Tim said a little bit. A lot of the banks I know looked at PSD2 as being just regulatory. Try to tick the box and let's go on. But that's not helpful. You get a lot of issues, you get a lot of incidents, you get a lot of extra work to be done. It's better to do quality right from the beginning, because that, first of all, your customers will not be happy. And also from a bank's perspective, I realized that a long time ago already, but we all have to realize that there are more channels that can be placed in front of a bank, and we are the service provider, which is fine as long as we have a role in it, and everybody else can have a role in it. As long as the customers are happy, we still have a role. So yeah, let's try to deliver quality, and then and that will make everybody happy in the entire chain. Also, the banks themselves.
And what I like about the countries where open banking is coming and it's not implemented yet is because they have this amazing opportunity to see what worked and what didn't work in Europe and in the UK and now other countries as well. And
Exactly.
just look beyond compliance. And that's, always when I talk to banks, I ask them, do this favor, look beyond compliance, because you will gain. And we see, and you guys see from the bank representatives here, it's more difficult and much more expensive to do this exercise just as a pure compliance exercise. And then when you, as a bank, understand that there's more to it and you want to offer more to your clients, you have to go back and rewrite, redraw, re-implement, and just, the total cost in time is increasing 2-3 times over. All right, thanks a lot, Guido, for sharing that. Just looking now at the time, we have a few minutes left and we have a few questions in the chat. So I will go over them. I see Andre already replied to one there. So to the representatives from the banks, Biljana is asking, are you currently following any specific standards or frameworks for your open banking implementation, such as the Berlin Group specification or something else? If so, was it helpful in guiding your implementation, and could you briefly share why that particular standard was chosen? That's for Guido or Tim and Tim.
And for us, it's the same. We also follow the Berlin Group standard, just because of the fact that the country that ING is in, those are the ones that the Berlin Group standard is the ones that's mostly used, also by other banks. So we want to just make it convenient. And I'm also going to say I'm not sure if we could follow it to the letter. So there might be some really small deviations, but those are really small just because of the fact that the back office will produce a different status message than we can actually sort of handle. But it is for 99% or more Berlin Group standard compliant.
On the Berlin Group topic, Paolo, maybe if you want to share a few words, because obviously Banfico is a member of the working group. And can you tell us about the Open Finance standard, like the newest version that's out there? And what's the benefit of looking at an Open Finance standard versus the previous Open Banking standard?
Yeah, so we have been contributing to the Berlin Group since the beginning, and we are now working on the open finance standards, which will enable new use cases, the so-called open finance use cases, which go beyond the account information and payment initiation, which facilitates the enablement of commercial use cases. So obviously, request to pay it's a bit of a trend these days, and it can be enabled through it's included in this open finance standards that the Berlin Group is working on, and the road plan is quite comprehensive. So there are a few APIs which are published, but there's a long list of APIs that will be published in the future, which will, in theory, as you were saying, because there's such a big coverage of Berlin Group standards, when and if the banks migrate to the open finance standards, it will facilitate the work that Andre was mentioning that the TPPs need to do. So it will facilitate for the entire market having access to other use cases, more advanced use cases. We are, as a service provider, we are already enabling it for a few banks, which is effectively creating a marketplace of APIs that the TPPs can pick and choose which ones they can consume, and have more innovative use cases and more practical use cases to the consumers. Which again, it's always, I think, we can all agree it's the final objective of the open banking and open finance frameworks. And just a final word on that, it will also support the regulatory changes that will come, that are in the pipeline, that some people killed and resurrected FIDA, but I think it will be there in some shape or form, which will require some technical changes, and the open finance standards are sort of aligned with that regulatory timeline in some way. So it will allow the banks to be compliant with the future regulations that will be published.
So it's future proof, and that's an advice and recommendation I can give to the Serbian banks to look at the open finance standard, or if you build it yourself, or if you work with the vendor in the space, take a look at that. Also, because Serbia is aligning with the European Union regulations, so PSD2 is an example of a directive that has been transposed. What's coming down the road, especially that Serbia has joined the SEPA zone, is verification of PE, which is another scheme, another compliance requirement. And Guido's nodding because the banks and team also, they're implementing that today. There's a deadline in October for them to become compliant. I think for Serbia, this will be 2027. And also the open finance upcoming regulations and FIDA, as Paolo said. So this is a journey. It's a long journey. It starts with the first deadline, but be sure, other deadlines will come along the years. So I see we don't have any other questions for the audience. If you'd like to ask anything, please use the chat. We have a few minutes left. And until that happens, maybe a last piece of advice that you guys want to share with the Serbian banks?
Can I start? So I've got a couple of things I'd like to point out. So first of all, consider how you organize yourself, because this is a different way of dealing with different customers, as I mentioned in the beginning. Consider opportunities from the beginning. Maybe you don't have the time to start them, but also everything that you build Now, you also should consider exploiting that either commercially or being able to add other features to it. And try to build it as generically as possible, because it will be add-ons. For instance, what Tim said, we did the same. We have one developer portal and not one developer portal per country. We have actually only 3 APIs and not 3 APIs per country. So, and doing that, you also lower your costs, but it's also less difficult to manage. But also when new regulations come up, like FIDA, for instance, which is coming up, you potentially can reuse the investments that you have done now for some of the things, like the developer portal, mandating, and stuff like that. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else wants to go?
Well, maybe just say it was mentioned that here in the EU it was often about the compliance, and I spoke with a lot of banks, with product owners from Erste and others, and quite often I hear the argument that it doesn't work because we wanted to be compliant. We know that we are not probably, but our advisors said we are, so it's good enough. We don't want to change it. That was our maximum effort. So maybe make a decision at the beginning. What's your goal? What you want to provide? Whether you want to be in those gray areas where you feel like you are compliant, but you really know that you are not. What you really want to provide the merchants, and definitely discuss it with all other banks in the market and try to be unite what you are offering, because what I see on Czech market or even other markets, if there are 3 banks that are providing quite good solution, 3 banks that are not providing so good solution, everyone looks bad. It's not that people start thinking, okay, these 3 banks are quite good. No, everyone's bad. Everyone. It's not that someone is better or worse. It's regarding the PIS or AIS. There's no winner here.
Right. Okay, I think we have one last question from Stasha. Can you share if there were any issues with custom consents, and if, what kind? And maybe this is to either Guido or Tim or Paolo.
We didn't have issues in the sense that somebody claimed not to have given consent, but we transferred the data. So that's so no privacy-related incidents. We did have some challenges in the beginning to map the user admin to the correct accounts, meaning that, for instance, some of the corporate accounts, you have to have 2 people authenticating a payment, or sometimes even 3 or 4. So those kind of challenges we did have. That's the mapping of the user admin from the local channel into the API consent management. That was an interesting journey, so to speak. But no security incidents or any of these kinds.
Yeah, same with us. Just a quick note on that. We do provide a consent management dashboard where the PSU and the bank can see all the details about when the consent was created, when it was consumed, for the long live consent, how many API calls were attached to that specific consent. So that gives full visibility. So if and when there are issues, we can go back and use that information for investigations as well.
Okay.
I can maybe mention also some custom consents issues that we encountered from the merchant or customer perspective, basically. At Czech Republic, most of the consents are given based on the credentials that the user is entering into the internet banking to give the consent. And a lot of banks are giving the consent based on the credentials. So we have merchants that have access to dozens of accounts through different companies, and the consent works with a lot of banks, just one consent for everything. But the merchant, the user, usually wants to choose which account they want to pair, which one they want to give the access to. And quite a few banks don't give this option, which is frustrating for the merchants. And at the end, they decide, okay, but I don't want to give you the access to all of these accounts because I don't have the right authority. I can give you access to just one company, not 4 companies, and so on. In Slovakia, banks are quite further because they at least enable you to choose which bank accounts you want to connect. But at the same time, after a while, when they want to add additional accounts with those credentials, it's not possible. Even after revoke, the banks somehow have it saved in their database, and it's a nightmare to connect more accounts later on. So those are some issues that we have encountered.
And the keyword is some, and there's many more. But our time is up, and I'd like to thank all of you guys for joining the session today. Again, big thanks to the Association of Serbian Banks for hosting this webinar. And the biggest thanks of all is to the participants and the audience that joined and also asked questions. I shared a few links in the chat. I'll be happy to connect, and you can connect with any or all of the speakers. If you have other questions in the future, we'll be happy to support you. Wish everyone a wonderful day and a wonderful end of the week. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.